Aw, look at that adorable squiglet, says this card description in Super Paper Mario. So adorable, under your foot. Welcome to the third and final episode of my Dark Aspects of Paper Mario. Well, I look now at the Wii's 2007 release.
We would like to play.
This dapper fellow over here on the box is Count Bleck, and he's the villain of this game. He's also a nihilistic murderer that wants everything eradicated from existence. All life in the uni and multiverse, including himself. If you think I am at all exaggerating, meet the focus of today's episode, a tragic character fittingly introduced in the most plot-focused Mario adventure ever made. I will now explain his backstory, using 100% actual lore found in the game through NPC dialogue and heavy story implications. Be warned, this will spoil the main plot and ending. Without further ado, The ancients, through historical tellings, were an intelligent civilization and gifted in the powers of magic, though they lacked physical strength. To make up for this major drawback, the tribe invented thinking tools, a fairy-like creature called pixels, using knowledge from a mysterious book that would later be dubbed the Dark Prognosticus. These pixels were cherished for ability to fortify, and were capable of building worlds that would further spread the ancients' influence. But after 1,000 years of being in control of these entities,
1,000 years of death!
The pixels rebelled by influence of their queen, the very first pixel ever made. The other first 12 pixels helped fight with the ancients against their queen, but unfortunately the uprising resulted in only one single survivor of that tribe. The survivor learned the truth behind pixels. They were born by using the souls of those that had died. The Pixel Queen being the deceased daughter of the ancient that invented pixels. That one surviving ancient took the Dark Prognosticus, so an event like the foretold Pixel War would never happen again. In doing this, he also founded a new group, the Tribe of Darkness. Their goal was to protect humankind and prevent the book from misuse, though descendants of the ancients twisted the real history and wrongfully believed the Tribe of Darkness stole it only to enhance their powers. This generation has since banned the production of any new pixels, in fear of a second rebellion that would ultimately lead to their downfall. This new Tribe of Darkness became very secretive from the rest of the world, and forbade marriage outside of their circle in fear of diluting their sorcerer blood. Normal humans were completely off limits, which is where Bleck comes in. Gradually told in a series of flashbacks at the end of each chapter, it's revealed his backstory. Before he became the Count, his name was Blumiere, and he fell in love with a human woman named Timpani that saved him from a fall from the cliffside. After proposing marriage and agreeing to live far away from the tribe that wants them apart, it's learned that his father made Timpani no longer reside in this world. Thinking Timpani was murdered, but actually had her memory wiped and cursed to, quote, wander through dimensions forever, Blumiere opened the Dark Prognosticus to use for his newfound life philosophy, to actually put into motion his idea that nothing should exist, since everything in the universe is pointless and bleak. Finally, a villain I can get behind. He's had the sole person he's loved taken away from him, so his approach is utterly nihilistic, to destroy all until nothing is left. So what does Count Bleck do to kickstart this plan? Within the first minute we're shown exactly how, as the player is thrown right into a cutscene in which Peach is forcibly being married to Bowser, the Count acting as the unholy wedding's priest. This non-consensual bond forms a world-ending catalyst known as the Chaos Heart, just as predicted in the Dark Prognosticus. With magic force to make her say I do, the union is successful and sets course for complete annihilation. After the Chaos Heart is born into the world, the Void was formed as a result, an ever-growing dimension-eating black hole that appears everywhere in the universe without exception. And I say without exception because this Void also appears in the game's version of Heaven and the Underworld. That very fact is terrifyingly existential when thinking critically, because it means that not even the afterlife is safe from non-existence. The Count's plan will delete all forms of thought, comprehension, and consciousness from all of being, and as such, the stakes could not be raised any higher than this. Comparable to the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, in which the moon is on a crash course to kill all of Termina's inhabitants, the NPCs reveal how they're preparing for the upcoming apocalypse through their dialogue interactions. Right before facing Bleck at the end of the game, many characters approach their inevitable doom with a mix of fear and surprising earnest in the overworld, some accepting death while others reflecting on what the point of their lives were and whether or not they're happy. It's respectable and quite sad, adding more depth and realism to this time and space the player's trying to save. Surprising too is the fact that we're shown, not simply told, how powerful this void really is. Samur's Kingdom, a location we'll talk about later, hosts a Duel of 100 tournament, in which the player must fight 100 challengers in order to meet with the king and claim the treasure needed to counter the dark power of Bleck's Chaos Heart. As I mentioned before, and because this chapter is accessible fairly late into the game, the void is gradually increasing in size and at its largest now. Look at that thing! In an effective display of storytelling, the party is told they must face every opponent before receiving that world's pure heart. Though after floor 20, the void has grown so massive the ground begins to tremble, and each vassal bows their knee to allow Mario to hurry through and make it to the king. This makes for a very tense atmosphere as the normally prideful, in-your-face Samur guys stop their introductions short, until they halt greetings entirely and simply yell at you to rush toward the final gate. But no matter how quick you are, the player's efforts are fruitless, as eventually a hopeless, manic warrior laughs off the impending doom and flees. Tippy exclaims her fear for the worst, and Samur's kingdom ceases to be. The player can re-enter this eliminated world to reclaim a pure heart sapped of its power, showing only the vast emptiness that remains. The player must traverse white space with the occasional rubble and collapse, while the bleak music track plays, driving hard what's been lost. This is emotionally impactful. The entire setup and payoff for Chapter 6 is an example of how to make an audience care for what they're doing. This act of showing us the aftermath was a brilliant move and one of the most memorable narrative moments in Mario's history for those that have experienced it. Mimi, a servant of Count Bleck, has helped initiate this apocalypse by stalling time. One of several, the man's gathered and wrongfully told this is all necessary to build a new, better world upon destroying the current one. However, as we learned from his monologue, the true plan from the beginning was really to obliterate himself and everything. Dimentio, the real final boss of the game, actually knew of this and planned to betray the tormented Count when the pure hearts were used up by Mario's team to fight him. The good part about all this is that even after a defeated, regretful Count wants Mario to put an end to him, Mario's pixel companion throughout the quest helps Blumiere come to his senses. Through slow build-up throughout the past several chapters, it's revealed that Tippy is actually Timpani, transformed into a pixel by Merlin as a last-ditch effort when he found the woman barely alive. Note that, as stated way back, pixels are created with the souls of the dead. As the two are finally reunited again, they move quickly to the altar used at the beginning of the game, exchange love vows with one another, and vanish, leaving behind a restored pure heart, the embodiment of love, to null the Chaos Heart. Nobody in-game knows where they really went, and Natasha, Bleck's closest assistant, also revealed to have been in love with him, albeit one-sided, believes them to be alive somewhere. The credits roll, and afterwards, a picture of Timpani as a human with Blumiere appears on screen. This was the place they promised to find in the flashbacks that would accept their love. It's very touching, and whether this is the afterlife or not, Bleck did say it would cause both their demise. It's reassuring that their souls are together again at peace. Count Bleck's previous dedication in wanting life to end is extremely depressing and makes for a heartrending end, with a surprising moral that Nintendo would advocate for, as this man, who remember did murder his own father and tribe, is deserving of happiness, redemption, and Timpani's acceptance. Additionally, his main theme is derived from the melancholy memory track that plays during the cutscenes revealing his past with Timpani and their eventual reunion. It's a perfectly touching tie-in that only accentuates the story, and whether you like that sort of plot telling or not, it's no doubt the writers really tried to construct a universe away from the typical Mario game and expand on every detail. Super Paper Mario has possibly the most external lore to find in any game of the franchise, meaning aside from the main plot, veering off and speaking to characters like Garson, the milk bar owner, and his flopside counterpart Carson, the coffee barista, reveals so much more world-building information that connects everything I've been speaking about. In fact, they provided most of the filling in the blanks about pixels I first discussed in the video. Continuing this world building, we have the Pit of 100 Trials, a multi-layered dungeon in the previous game, and a series of rooms designed for torture. In this sequel, there are 2 descending pits, and, according to those 2 gossipers, one was used by the ancients to research the power of the pure hearts, while the other was simply to study the powers of darkness. Their experiments involved all sorts of nasty enemies from throughout the game's worlds, explaining why they occupy each floor, with 2 boss monsters housed at the basements of each pit. This includes an upgraded mechanical dragon to the one fought early on in the game, and Shadu, a shape-shifting demon that acts as the final challenge to this side quest. The duplicator states to work for its own cursed powers, and reveals that it asks the main cast to complete the pit a second time, simply as a way to study and clone their character. Its goal was to perfectly replicate and replace the heroes to seek revenge on the ancients. An interesting bit of story that adds to the overarching one. Both it and Racktail had a hatred for the creators, but just what is Shadu? These tidbits of lore add a lot of intrigue to the game's history, with the mysteries of these ancients the game brings up so much. Shadu's origin is left vague enough to investigate further, but satisfies curiosity and is worth talking about because the developers cared enough to craft this world and constantly reference in-game events. Transferring to my segment of hidden sexual themes within the game, and for a little break from the darker topics, we have another tale from Garson, this time gossiping about the ancients and their supposed passion for love. Sorry, I meant hot, burning passion, capitalized. He even whispers about an ancient sage the player meets early on, Merlumina, and her particularly spicy love life. So, if all the ancients were so passionate about love, and Merlumina was the most promiscuous, just what is she romantically competing against? Well, if you remember the Samur Kingdom and its 100 soldiers, these fighters are said to be the children of King Samur and Merlumina's younger sister. If her sister gave birth to 100 kids, and Merlumina is the one with a spicy love life, we can get a glimpse of just how passionate this tribe really was. Take that in for a minute. Speaking of, Garson goes on to say, the 100 princes and their royal parents ushered in a new era of prosperity. Imagine all the budding romances with 100 strapping princes around. My goodness, who would have expected that kind of dialogue and topic from this series? Moving forward, additional sexual references include Dementio calling Luigi's mustache a shag to insult him. This was censored in the PAL region because in Great Britain, shag is slang for sex. Mimi also dreams of pools filled with hunky lifeguards, revealed by Dementio upon reading her diary. Embarrassed, she transforms into Bowser, a reference to the first game in which Peach must read his diary to learn where Mario has to travel next. While on the topic of Mimi, and like Shadu, Carson brings up the important question of what exactly she is. Both offers of an answer involve her being a failed experiment of sorts, whether it be an attempt at creating a new pixel, or a witch's unintended brewing. A potion with mimicking properties would explain her ability, and may give reason for her terrifying true form. That's right, as hinted by Tippy, this is not the real Mimi. Undergoing a horrific transformation, wow, more like Majora's Mask than I thought, in which her neck audibly snaps and head rotates around. It uncomfortably stops upside down where spider legs sprout out from where her neck was to become this beast. A deranged laugh using her name is accompanied by a purple jagged text box, usually reserved for the series' most sinister villains, where it then proceeds to chase you around in its first appearance throughout a maze where it will warp and try to catch up to you. Nerve-wracking and classically scary, being a creepy crawler paired with her innocent girl to gag-inducing metamorphosis. This provides some of the game's greater nightmare fuel. And if you think we're done, before moving away from Mimi, it's also worth mentioning her prominence before this as a ringleader, enslaving Mario and Peach by locking them in a mansion and forcing them to pay off a massive debt for breaking an inexpensive vase. The slavery theme is played up heavily here, with those that thought were going to Merle's mansion for a charm, instead being tricked into the same position Mario's in as a prisoner, but in worse shape than him. These unfortunate souls are bound by ball and chains and served by direction of these whip-wielding akpows. Clearly inspired by ancient Egypt labor systems, it's certainly an unexpected direction to interact with and work as a peasant in inhumane circumstances. Moving away from enslavement and getting back to what I mentioned about this game's afterlife, there is frequent talk of death in this game. Death itself is usually always spoken of with the pretty clever euphemism game over, as in, that character lost his last life without any extra chances. For the team at Super Paper Mario to write in game overs as an actual story consequence is incredible, and something I hope to see revisited in a future Mario RPG.